What is scrap factor? In an automation process, whether you're setting up or tearing down, for us it's reels of components, small components. There's a certain amount of loss when you're setting the machine up. There's a certain amount of loss while you're running the machine. Without the correct amount, it takes us longer to set up because now we're having to try to save parts in bags, mark them, keep them separate, and hand place. So we're actually losing time. It adds to the labor of the project, it affects our throughput, and increases costs. There's a standard calculation for the size of components, the smaller components that are in reels, we put into our system as a standard. Larger, expensive components, we don't tend to put a scrap factor on them because they are big, they're expensive, and they're easier to process. Of course, the pick and place SMT is the one most people talk about. We also have an automated through-hole insertion machine. There's some scrap factor for that. We average around 8,000 parts an hour through the automation process. There's no way a human being can place that many parts by hand and make sure the polarities are right, getting them in the right position, the right placement, I should say. Any way to reduce the scrap? We always watch scrap. I mean, there's always going to be a certain amount. We try to minimize that amount. The manufacturers of the equipment design feeders nowadays that reduce the amount, so you're not losing as many components. We do small batches mainly, so we're not buying a full reel. A full reel has what's called a leader on the front, where there's some empty pockets in the tape, so you're not losing much in the setup. But we buy cut tape, what's called cut tape, which is partials in a reel, which do not have that leader on it. That's why we see scrap in a small batch more than a big run where you're buying a full reel of 5,000 to 10,000 parts. We just don't need that many parts. During the running process, parts, because they're small and they're light, they can bounce around in the tape and the reel. The machine can mispick a few, not see them in the camera. The manufacturer of the parts try to hold the tolerance. Again, we have a vision system, and we're watching the size of the part because we want to make sure we're replacing the correct part. You'll lose some through there. There's really not much damage associated with that. It's more just loss from the automation of the high-speed machine. Allowable scrap is what we're all driving for in any manufacturer. You don't want a large amount of scrap because that affects your cost. So we do try to keep that down